All right, Friday, January 14th, 1:03, we will begin. Can we start with roll call, please, Sebastian?
Yes. Let's see here. Ed Lopez,
Here.
Carolyn Schofield,
Present.
Gary Johns,
Present.
Matthew Vasilakis,
Present.
David Harris,
Present.
and I just promoted Jen. She just joined. Yeah, so just in time, Jen.
Present.
Thank you. Vice Chair, you have phone.
All right, present. Do we have any, I'm sorry?
Apologies, I forgot to call your name, but yes, thank you for saying present.
I think it was assumed, but for procedure, thought I would say it. Do we have any non-agenda public comments? Or is anyone interested in speaking that's on today?
We have no submitted written public comments for today. And I will remind those in attendance that they can raise their hand if they wish to speak on non-agenda public items.
Okay, not seeing anyone, so we'll proceed. Does anyone have an item to be withdrawn or reordered on our agenda today? All right, not seeing any. We'll move on to item number 5, which is discuss and provide recommendation to the board on including a CAC report as a standing item at their regular board of directors meetings. Last year, when we launched, there was a space for our chair. When Eddie was unavailable, I had given updates on what we had discussed, what was important at our last board meetings. This, at some point late last year, was taken off the agenda, and we being, I've spoken with Eddie about this, Chair Price, think it's important for one of us to be able to give an update at those board meetings. It's been suggested by one of the board members to have Bill Carnahan give an update on our behalf, or anything we vote on for the board to vote on to be an agenda item, but we think it would be best to have someone representing our committee to just give a very quick update and to relay anything that we think was of importance that happens at our meeting for their next meeting. So any questions about this item?
Just point of understanding, did you say that they felt that Bill Carnahan or somebody else could give the update instead of a member of the CAC?
That was a recommendation. I don't see him on the call today, and he hasn't come to most of our meetings. So I don't know if he would start coming to our meetings. We just felt like it would be best for someone who is actively participating in our meetings to relay back our message.
Well, I would definitely want somebody from our committee to represent what we are really trying to take to them.
I agree. Matthew?
Thank you. I would want to second Gary's sentiments. I think it's important for someone from our committee to provide that update. And if the concern from either staff or the board for not agendizing this is that, you know, they have time constraints or they have other issues in that regard, maybe perhaps we just make the item kind of time certain. It's like no more than a 5-minute update or, you know, 10-minute update from the CAC, just to provide that community input, because I think this organization is rooted in community. I believe staff is very supportive, understanding of that. I know the board does, but I think, you know, our voices are important and they need to be heard. And you know, to the earlier point, I don't think our current interim CEO would be up to the task. He hasn't been to our meetings. I don't know how we would get this information to him and ensure that he'd be able to clearly communicate what it is that we have to present. So I'd be very much in favor of getting us back on the agenda instead of being relegated to the sidelines. Thank you.
Thanks, Matthew. And I see Anna Webb has just joined. She's in as an attendee. Sebastian, if you're able to promote her to a panelist at your convenience, please.
Yes, I just.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments on this before we take a motion? All right, would anyone like to make a motion?
Well, okay, since nobody's speaking up, I guess I will. I think the wording here is pretty clear. So in terms of, well, okay, so I move that we ask the board to agendize a report from the CAC meeting as to, and the update given by a CAC member duly appointed.
Could I suggest a friendly amendment where we ask them to vote on this? Because my understanding now, they're only discussing items that we ask them to vote on at their next meeting. So if we ask them to vote on it, then it should be agendized. Otherwise, it might not be agendized for them to even discuss it, if that makes sense.
I'm not sure I understand exactly the ramifications of that, but I'm willing to accept that.
Okay,
I'll second with the amendment.
all right. Are there any last questions, comments? Sebastian, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Ed Lopez,
Yes.
Carolyn Schofield,
Yes.
Matthew Vasilakis,
Aye.
Gary Johns,
Yes,
David Harris,
Aye.
Jen Dirks,
Aye.
Anna Webb, Secretary Webb,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Hannah.
Aye. All right, passes
you.
unanimously. Thank you all. Thanks, Sebastian. And Secretary Webb, I know you joined during that. If you need any clarification, I'm happy to connect with you afterwards on the language for the minutes.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, moving along to agenda item 6. Appointing one CAC representative to join the CEO ad hoc search. So this is not, this is something we've discussed the last several meetings, that we've been recommending to have someone from our committee on the ad hoc search. The document that was released earlier this week did not have us being in the actual interviews. It had us meeting the candidates along with staff. But just wanted to connect on this item today to see if there's any questions and if anyone is interested in being our representative. All right, if there's no feedback, I'd like to make a motion to recommend Matthew Vasilakis as our representative to the CEO ad hoc search committee and request for the board to, the board and or the ad hoc search committee to approve this person to be in the interviews.
Vice Chair Hammond, I'm just carrying along some of the recommendations that were given at the last meeting in terms of entertaining public comment.
Oh, yes. Thank you. As I said before, I also have a ton of pressure behind my head and I'm not thinking clearly. So thank you for reminding me of that. I was going to ask for a
Yeah.
reminder. Do we have any comments from the public on this item?
I see no hands raised. Vice Chair.
Okay. Were there any written comments for any items today?
No.
Okay. All right. That said, I have shared that motion. Does anyone have any questions or would like to second or feedback?
I will.
I was going to say, I would think Matthew would need to agree to it first.
I do accept the nomination.
Great.
I will second the motion.
And I had a question just for clarity. So has the board or the CEO search subcommittee actually asked for a member of this advisory committee to be involved in the search committee?
It's been brought to their attention over the last few months, and members of the board have said that they think it's a great idea and they would like to see us represented there. I don't know if there has been I haven't heard of a specific ask, but I have heard when this gets brought up, they say, yes, that makes sense. Yes, it worked out great last time. We think this should happen. And so us approving this today will put it on their agenda for them to vote on next month. And if they decide not to, that's up to them. But this is just helping push the process along.
Well, I was just thinking of a friendly amendment that would be that the committee recommends that the board appoint one CAC representative to join the CEO ad hoc search committee and participate in the candidate interviews.
Okay.
Can you please clarify how that amendment changes the original motion?
The way I understand the original motion is that I assume that there had been some requests that we make an appointment. But it has been discussed at the board. But there wasn't any formal invite from the board or the consultant. So that's why I'm suggesting a friendly amendment to recommend to the board, since they have not specifically taken the initiative to invite us.
And why I was suggesting to bring this forward today versus waiting a month is because we saw the timeline. It's pretty quick to get a new CEO in, and instead of waiting for their meeting in 2 weeks and then going back to our meeting weeks later and then going back to the board, it just made sense to do it today. And with that recommendation that they do approve this. And if they don't, it's out of our control, but at least we have someone queued up and we're ready to go, and it doesn't delay the process at all.
Sounds good.
Do you want to reiterate your friendly motion? Or-
Oh, it was just to add really the, and I'm okay if you don't accept it, that's fine. Just to recommend to the board or the CEO subcommittee that they appoint one CAC representative. So it's framing it within that context.
So our ask is, we are asking them to approve Matthew Vasil, in this case, if the motion
Yes.
passes, we are asking them to approve Matthew Vasilakis for the CEO ad hoc search committee, excuse me.
Mhm.
Okay, Gary?
Yes, I think we should vote separately on the amendment first and then on the original motion. With all due respect to committee member Harris, I don't think it's a good idea to just, again, to Tara's point, possibly delay the process of getting Matthew into their search process. So what I'm saying is I would like a vote on the amendment first and then on the motion.
Sebastian, would 2 votes be permitted on this agenda item per the Brown Act?
I would say that you can move forward with that. If there is a concern, we can touch base with our legal counsel afterwards and see. But at this moment, I don't see an issue with voting on an amendment, since it's of similar nature to what's on the agenda.
To me, I think it's common practice, like Robert's Rules of Order, that amendments have to be voted up or down and then you know, the original motion as amended per which amendments passed and which didn't, then gets voted on. I think it is actually standard procedure to vote an amendment up or down before voting on the motion.
So where does that leave us right now?
We need a parliamentarian. What can I say?
Do you have a recommendation for how we proceed right now, Gary?
I think I just stated it. Let us vote on David's amendment, and then let's vote on the original motion as amended if the first vote passes.
Okay, I'm sorry. As I said, I really don't feel well, and I made the original motion, and I think what David said was kind of part of what I said. I think procedure wise, I have to accept it for Cody's raising her hand. Maybe she can help us.
I'm no expert either. But I believe if you're making an amendment to a motion, as long as the maker of the motion accepts the amendment, it doesn't require a separate vote because you're going to vote on the totality of the motion with the amendment included.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got the book right here, Robert's Rules, and I was just looking it up. And
Anna, thank you, Cody. Anna, do you mind reading what the original motion was to see if the amendment, for me to evaluate the amendment?
the original motion was to nominate Matthew Vasilakis as our CAC representative to the ad hoc committee for CEO. And Matthew accepted, and then David Harris seconded the motion. So that motion is on the floor. Then there was a recommended amendment, but in my experience, and just I'm flipping and I haven't gotten exactly to it, but that the first motion would need, because the amendment isn't necessarily an amendment to this motion. It's almost like the amendment is a separate recommendation, because then we're saying that we recommend that we have a representative when we already nominated one. So now I'm trying not to get in the weeds on this, but I think we can absolutely go ahead and nominate Matthew as our choice to represent our committee to the board. And then afterwards, we can choose how to push that up to the board as far as what we recommend, and that we ask that we have a seat at the table.
Okay, thank you. Cody, so if the recommendation or the initial motion was to nominate Matthew. If I accept David's recommendation to change the motion to, we are appointing Matthew to be our representative, and we'd like the board to vote on it, or the board or ad hoc to approve it this month. Does that work? If I accept, because to me, that's more or less what David was saying, right, David?
Pretty much.
So the motion, sorry, and again, I'm no expert on this, but we're just trying to, I don't want to over process us. I think you guys, your intent is more important than getting too much in your heads about Brown Act. So if you trying to essentially follow what's on the slide here, appoint one CAC representative to join blah, 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 and kind of adding to that, and your recommendation or your representative is Matt, that to me sounds like an amendment and a clean kind of amendment to this motion that's on the screen. If you're doing something different and that I'm not understanding, then maybe I need to understand better.
So I think we definitely want to recommend an individual. In this case, Matt's name is on the table. And then the other part of David's recommendation was asking the board to vote on it.
Okay, so I think that's still an amendment to this. Again, I am also not an attorney, but I think that's still just you're essentially amending what's the motion on the screen.
Yes.
So then we would it would be presented to the board. The CAC has approved Matthew to, or has appointed Matthew to be on the CEO ad hoc search committee. And we're requesting you to approve that either at the board or if the board directs it to the ad hoc search committee.
Yes.
Okay, I am fine taking that friendly amendment. Thank you, Cody, for your clarification, and thank you, Secretary Webb, for your detailed notes that helped us get here. Gary, is your hand raised from earlier, or do you have something else to say?
Sorry, I just haven't taken it down.
No worries.
Lower hand. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay, any questions, comments from the CAC? Any questions, comments from the public? All right, Sebastian, could we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Ed Lopez,
Just to clarify, if we are voting and recommending to put Matthew's name forward as our representative, and certainly implying that we'd like the board to allocate and approve his participation, I support.
Yes. Thank you.
Carolyn Schofield,
Aye.
Gary Johns,
Yes.
David Harris,
Aye.
Jen Dirks,
Aye.
Matthew Vasilakis,
Aye.
Secretary Webb,
Aye.
and Vice Chair Hand.
Hi, thank you everyone for working through that one. Okay, moving along. Next item should be easier for us, although more complicated. Receive and discuss update on 2022 rate proposed to SDCP Board of Directors at the January 20th, 2022. So it sounds like at the upcoming meeting. And is this Nicey Nelson's on or Lucas? I'm not sure who's giving this update.
This will be myself and Lucas,
Oh.
which is why I popped on.
Okay, great. Thank you, Cody.
So we are giving this action item to our board next week, of course. And if you recall, actually, you can go to the next slide, whoever's running this. And we do this obviously every year around January, although it's not really a habit for us yet since we're still new, but it will become one. And we'll talk through the timeline, but kicking off our rates setting each year. So the things that we think about as we are setting rates are a few things that you see here. So what are our costs? What are our operating costs to run our organization? And that includes both power costs, which are the bulk of our costs, which I think you've all probably seen our budget by now and are getting familiar with it. And then also our operations, right? Much smaller, gosh, I don't know, 5% of our total costs. Also important work, but it's interesting to see the scale. And that's everything from staffing and professional services, marketing, the community programs that we're pushing forward, and then interest payments and credit and banking obligations that we have, as well as building up reserves. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. The next thing we think about is, once we know what we need to bring in revenue-wise, what is the value we're trying to provide to our customers? What are we bringing them? And so, of course, we already know we're doing this, so we'd like to maintain bringing higher renewables at competitive costs to our customers. We're also thinking about stability. So how do we not only consider, unfortunately, we can only do rate setting 1 year at a time because the way the nature of all rate setting is set up, we don't have visibility much beyond the next year. But how can we still consider what might be coming in the future years? And then communicating. This is the hardest part for us because rates are really complex and kind of wonky. So we try to boil it down, but communicate to our customers what they're paying for, what's in their rates, to try to be as transparent as possible. And then, of course, thinking about future enrollments. For us, most immediately in 2023, we have more customers that we're enrolling. So that's a little bit different dynamic than just a year-over-year kind of maintenance. And we want to think about what next year's rates might look like as well as we bring on new customers. And the last kind of box we check is thinking, okay, where does SDG&E stand? What are their rates? And, unfortunately, as much as we'd like to be just compared to our own selves, everybody, when we talk to customers, one of the first things they ask is, how do you compare to SDG&E? What do I get in cost? What do I get in quality? So we check that box as well. And that's the general considerations that we think about when we're setting rates. Next slide, please. So just a quick reminder of the timeline, if it's not clear. So the top above the timeline is actions that San Diego Community Power, our board, has taken. So we set our rates last in April. We actually had 2 rates set last year in the beginning of the year, and then we revised them in April for a June 1st implementation. And then, of course, we expanded our service in June. And then in December, we had a pretty detailed presentation on at least what we were expecting to hear around rates for 22. We didn't have all the data then, so it was more of a preliminary presentation. This month, our board will be adopting our rates, and then they'll be effective February 1st, because as you all know, we're enrolling customers, so we need to have rates set for that enrollment. Along the bottom, you see actions taken by SDG&E or the CPUC in partnership with SDG&E. So they had multiple rate changes last year in January, or actually, I think last year in February, they set the rates. They changed them in June and a couple other times. They also start filing earlier in the year around, it's called the ERA, which I think you all have heard about that too. It's their sales forecasts for the next year that not only affects their own commodity rates, but the PCIA, which is the above market costs of their portfolio that affect our customers as well. And franchise fees are also embedded in that. So we have to wait for that process to play out in order for us to know how our customers will be impacted. And then skipping ahead, there's not every month on here, we cut this short. So it goes from August to November. They had another rate change and they file an update to that forecast. So the first one they file, we would look at and we weigh in on, but it's typically pretty inaccurate because it's early in the year. The November one starts to get a little bit clearer, and we're pretty active in that proceeding and weighing in on details and checking their work. And then December is when the CPUC approves their final 2022 forecast application. So we get those numbers, the final numbers, December 30th this year, I think. And then over New Year's, Lucas works to crunch a lot of numbers and put together what we think our rates will be. And then their rates are effective as of January 1st. And that's not only their general commodity rates, it's everything that they provide, as well as the PCI calculations, which again is what we need to know. Next slide, please. Sorry, my dog is chewing on a bone in the background. If you hear any weird background noises, it's the only thing keeping him quiet. So one of the things we're thinking about, what's changed this year, why, as you probably have heard by now, rates are going up. SDG&E has already announced their rates are going up. We actually, full transparency, we're proposing a rate increase as well, although we have some good news to go along with that. The biggest thing is market prices. Cost of natural gas has gone up dramatically over the last year, and you don't need to know all these numbers, but you can see that it's pretty much doubled over the past. This goes from January of 2020 to the end of last year. So if you recall the power outages, the Texas debacle, all those things contributed to prices going up significantly. And that affects everybody that's buying power. Next slide, please. So what we do is we start with our pro forma, which it's pretty much a living document for us. It's constantly looking at, in the red boxes, operating revenue and expenses, and what we call net surplus or deficit, which hopefully we don't have. And you don't have to worry about all these numbers. I'll boil it down in the next slide, so it's much more narrow, but we just want to show you that we kind of are constantly doing an updated 5-year kind of lookout based on typically market prices are the thing that ever caused this to change. And then contracts, as we sign them and we lock in prices, we put all that together in this document. This informs our annual budget, this informs procurement, and this informs our credit needs and how we deal with the bank. And then of course it informs rate setting. So you see the first thing we considered was, what if we don't change our rates this year? What does that look like for us as a still new organization? And you could see that revenues come in at 353 million, expenses are at 336. I know this is really tiny for everybody, sorry. But the net surplus here is $500,000. And so the point there is for us to weather a year, when you think about that market graph I just showed you, any change, any blip in anything, $500,000 when we're an organization that's a $353 million operation is not financially sound. It actually brings us cash flow negative in some months, which is especially again for a startup, really not a good place to be. And of course, our creditors and our bankers are going to look at this and say, you guys are not making good financial decisions. So next slide. That was our no rate change. Well, we checked it. We wanted to see what it looks like. So we are now comparing the no rate change scenario with what we are proposing as our rates, and you'll see a difference. So revenues obviously jump because of the rate change, as do our expenses do change a little bit, but the net surplus is a big difference. So we now go from $500,000, which gives all of us internally here heart palpitations, to about $29.5 million, which sounds like a good amount of money. But again, for being such a young organization and knowing that the next year, we don't know what's going to happen, but we do expect prices to come down and us to have to lower our prices again. So we need to build a little bit of a buffer to be able to withstand the following year. Then the cumulative reserve is just things that we've compared to cumulative with this year and next year. So it's a little bit over $30 million. We don't have our CFO on board here today, but he'll talk at the board meeting about gross reserves and cash on hand. And really what we're looking at is, again, cash flow positivity by month, and then building a reserve target towards a reserve target of 90 days cash on hand, which you'll see here, our proposed rates bring us to about 32 days, which is a good trajectory towards getting towards that 90 days. So we feel confident that the proposed rate changes that we're presenting put us in a good financial situation, but are also still beneficial to our customers. Go ahead, next slide, please. And this is, I'll turn it over to Lucas here, but he'll tell you why this is beneficial to our customers. So Lucas, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Cody. Good afternoon, everyone. So what you're seeing in front of your screens, this is just a projected bill comparison for a typical small commercial customer on rate TOUM. On the left-hand side, essentially this captures rates as they were effective 11/1/2021, which was the last SDG&E rate change before this latest rate change that they just had effective January 1st, which is what you see on the right-hand side. So on the left here, essentially we've captured, the pieces that customers see on their bill, the generation cost, which is the piece that we're responsible for, and we are replacing when we unbundle the commodity as customers enroll over into our service. And then you should see the two asterized factors, PCI and franchise fee, which when you look at this comparison, it appears as if they're only being assessed on just SDCP customers. But the one thing that I definitely want to point out here is that is not true, in the sense that SDG&E bundle customers do also pay for PCI and franchise fee, but the way that that piece or those two pieces are depicted on the bills is they're embedded as part of the overall generation costs. And so customers, when looking at their bills, do not see the itemization of the PCI line item or franchise fee line item for that matter. So this is the reason why the depiction is the way that it is, because this correlates to what customers typically see on their bill. But the key takeaway being both bundle customers and CCA customers do actually get assessed PCI and franchise fee, and they pay for those for these two factors accordingly. So overall, bills are increasing whether you are a bundle customer or an SDCP customer by approximately 11%. But that's not to say that customers on our service aren't getting a benefit. On the right-hand side, I just want to call attention to the last column, where you can see that the total generation-related charges are actually seeing a savings value of 2% when customers are on our service relative to SDG&E. In other words, bills are increasing, but our savings that customers can expect to see as a function of these proposed rates is also increasing. The board approved rates from June 1st of 2021 only had a savings value proposition of 1%. These proposed rates that will be taken to the board next week will enhance that value proposition to 2%, simply because we understand that, hey, bills are increasing, but at the same time, we want to offer customers value in the sense of this enhanced discount to hopefully help offset the overall total bill increase. And then obviously, one of the things that we pride ourselves in is offering a superior product. Our Power On offers 50% renewable energy content relative to the base product by SDG&E, which is only at 31% renewable. And so broadly speaking, customers will see an enhanced value proposition from 1% to 2%, which translates to about a 1% savings across total bill. And this is what you're seeing play out in this comparison. So I'll take a pause, see if there are any questions on this one before I move to the next slide.
I see Jen Dirks first, then Secretary Webb, then Gary.
So I'm just wanting to clarify for myself in summary is that the crux of this is that SDG&E is raising their rates next year. We're raising to comply or to follow suit with that. We're still a 1% savings based on the comparison between SDG&E and SDCP. But how does that affect the experience for clients that are opted into SDCP and their rates go up, but they don't realize they would have also gone up with San Diego or with SDG&E, but it just feels like because of the switch, they're now higher. How does that timeline work out for those customers?
So you're absolutely right, Jen, in the sense that there could be a perception that the increase in customers' bills is a function of perhaps their transition over to SDCP, but the thing that essentially helps dispel that notion is down to the fact that for every rate change that is either driven by SDG&E or driven by SDCP, we are mandated to publish joint rate comparisons across the two entities, and we both check the numbers and we publish those publicly on our websites and on all platforms, and customers can see what the value proposition of being on our service is. And again, I think in terms of the messaging around this, we also have a few things about I think we have a Did You Know series that we're rolling out, which essentially educates customers on what to expect and all of the benefits that they get by being on our service. So all that to say is, if customers elect to opt out of our service, and let's say go back to SDG&E bundle service, they will not only be paying more, but also be getting a product that is not nearly as superior as what they would otherwise get by staying on our service.
Mm-hmm.
And it is our hope that, through the campaigns that we're doing and through involvement of all members, including the CAC, that we can get in front of the perhaps skewed and quite frankly incorrect messaging to say that, hey, you guys are increasing your rates, and we will be subjected to it because we're transitioning over to your service. It's actually quite to the contrary.
Thank you.
Okay, there is a UT article today that talked about SDG&E's rate increases. So I think sharing information helps educate people as well. So that was a good question. Thank you, Jen. And Secretary Webb.
Yeah, so SDG&E's rate increase, did that start last month in January then?
Correct, but the one thing to notice, Secretary Webb, is the fact that SDG&E has had several rate changes in the past 12 months, and every single time that they've changed rates have incrementally increased. And so the fact that even in this example, as far as what we're capturing from a total bill change perspective of 11%, it's not technically comparing apples to apples. The fact that, you know, SDCP has only had one rate change in June, you know, if June is the starting time frame relative or vis-a-vis to SDG&E's rate change in June, then in November, and then now in January, the increase that bundle customers would see every single time SDG adjusted rates is actually significantly more than the 11% that, you know, customers on our service have experienced or will experience as a function of these proposed rates to be effective February 1st.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've seen mine increase insanely over this past year. We're an IB, so I think we're the first rollout on residential. I did want to comment on the fact that the market price is what's driving these increases, number one, and then number two, the fact that I agree with doing this on the part of SDCP, because I've worked with 5 various startups in my career, and the worst thing that can happen is to be cash poor or cash, you know, questionable cash, at least for the first 3 to 5 years, you know, and without pushing it back on the customer, it's also important to build the company and to, you know, get it launched properly, that you have enough in the coffers. So I do support this. And that was it. Thanks.
Thank you. And we have Gary next.
Just a quick follow-up on Anna's comment. There was a Nextdoor post about the rates going up, and there were 80 some replies, at least in the region that that covers my Nextdoor group. So this is a hot topic in the public. And the comment I want to make is that, you know, there's a reason prices are always priced at like $11.99 or $13.99, because it sounds cheaper. And if I look at this and I'm thinking about people that don't really get into the weeds about why their electricity is going up, and if they see the comparisons, if they look down at the bottom and see the 11%, both there, they say, well, okay, that seems fair. But suppose our increase was 10% and not 11%, and even just trying to do that small shaving as I'll say a marketing ploy. Maybe I shouldn't use that word, as you know, for marketing purposes. I think that might be something to consider, and I would just like to make that suggestion. I certainly don't want to get down in the weeds. I don't want to be on a committee to change all that went into setting these rates, but I'm just thinking, you know, just a slight difference on that net percentage would be very effective for us in terms of positive goodwill in the community.
Gary, if it's okay, I'll just chime in there, because Lucas and I've been having this conversation, and I know he mentioned it, but the 11% for SDCP, that's since June of last year. We haven't changed our rates actually since April of last year. SDG&E, that's only since November. If you go back to April of last year, their increase is more like 16 or 18%, and we were debating how to frame that. So your point is actually helpful, because we were debating that ourselves. So maybe we'll play around with that data a little bit to show that's truly their increase is only the most recent increase is 11%, and maybe there's some way we could message that better. So thank you for that.
So what you're saying is, since the current rate, the effective 11/1, if you took the rates effective like back to a year ago, so that you're comparing more what's happened with us and with SDG&E, then you would make SDG&E's percentage way higher. That seems like a good idea to do.
That's why we come here. You all are helpful with that stuff. So thank you.
I'm done.
Just wanted to add that, yes, thanks, Gary. I think Cody and I will we'll definitely take that into advisement. But yes, I mean, it's something that we've been debating internally, and indeed, we'll try and find a way that better reflects. But from our perspective, interacting with customers, especially when customers look at their bills year over year, right? When they compare what impacts, given the fact that usage has pretty much stayed constant, they are seeing anywhere between almost 20 to 30% increases. All right.
Well, I'll just make a final comment that, this comparison be February to February, 21 to 22. Really, if you think about it.
Indeed. I think from a transparency perspective, we just wanted to capture what customers can expect to see in terms of what the last joint rate comparison that we did, which was effective November 1st, utilizing our board approved June 1st rates vis-a-vis what they will see once bills with SDG&E's latest bill change and our proposed bill change in February will be. Unless there are any other questions, I'll move ahead with the next slide, please.
I don't see any other questions. Gary, your hand's still raised from previously, I'm assuming. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hammond. So on this bill comparison that is before you, this is again it's a similar depiction, but for average residential customer on rate DR. Again, very much similar mechanics in terms of what we're capturing. Just the comparison of our last joint rate comparison relative to the joint comparison that customers can expect to see once they start getting billed on SDG&E's latest rate change effective January 1st versus our proposed rates, assuming that the board approves them to be effective February 1st. So again, wholesale increases for the total bill, but customers still seeing that enhanced savings proposition of the previous 1% to 2% still holding. And then obviously customers still getting the benefit of a superior product in terms of the renewable energy content going forward. The one thing that I will mention is these comparisons are not factoring in our Power 100, which is our premium product, versus a similar product by SDG&E called Eco Choice. Based on the latest rate change effective January 1st by SDG&E, their Eco Choice customers are actually getting charged almost twice as much as our Power 100 customers. And just for additional context, SDG&E has filed an advice letter with the CPUC to essentially suspend their Eco Choice program as a function of that. I do see a couple of hands raised.
I just, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to go to Ed since he's spoken last first, and then Secretary Webb, then Gary.
Thank you. With these bill comparisons or any bill comparisons, are they included in customers' monthly bills? And is there any authorized or allowed bill message or bill insert that's afforded to SDCP in their monthly bills?
That's an excellent question. So yes, and if you've looked at your latest SDG&E bill, that essentially captures the usage from December through January, there should be a message. I just checked my bill yesterday, actually, that tells you that, hey, this billing period has a rate change effective 1/1, and the bill, I think, I forget the actual language that they use, but essentially they're calling the fact that that bill is prorated, meaning the usage from December is utilizing their previous rates, and then the portion from 1/1/2022 going forward is utilizing the the latest rates effective January 1st. Now,
Yes, but really, I guess I'm really asking, is there the opportunity for SDCP to have its own information
There-
included? Not just what SDG&E includes traditionally or usually in their monthly bills, but a bill message, a bill insert, and a bill comparison, any and all context or information that SDCP controls and can dictate.
that's an excellent question, and I was actually going to answer it in this manner. So if you look at a CCA customer's bill, the CCAs do have their specific bill section wherein the CCA charges are articulated. And in that bill section by the CCA, there is a fast lane, meaning there is a place where we can put our own information. If you have any questions about your bill, please contact our contact center at 1-800-XYZ. And in that section, we can put a message essentially calling attention to the fact that our rates have changed effective 2/1 going forward. And that is what we will be doing once the board approves these proposed rates. And so then customers can definitely know that the rates have changed. And even in the bill itself, so all bills that go from January through February, customers will see that proration in terms of the usage that was pre-rate change and post-rate change accordingly. And then in addition to that, in terms of the comparison on the bill, that is not possible because again, it's a bill. You only have it's only specific amount of characters that you can put. But we do publish that joint rate comparison. That is a mandate by the CPUC. Every single rate change, both SDG&E and SDCP will publish that joint rate comparison that essentially simulates what an average customer can expect to pay as a function of SDG&E's rate change and the CCA rate change, as well as they will clearly see the value proposition. It's not going to be quantified in percentage terms, but definitely from a dollar perspective, which is what you see on the total average monthly bill in front of your screen. Customers clearly can see that by being on SDCP service, that they are paying less and they are getting that superior product because we quantify the percentage of renewable content as part of that overall joint rate comparison.
Thank you, Lucas. I don't think I heard you specific. Ed was asking if an insert can go in as well. It sounds like SDCP has a blurb that can be written that has a set character limit. Could SDCP get an insert into the bill as well?
Well, we are given a space on the bill where we can put in an insert if need be, but we just have to be cognizant of the fact that there is a character limitation. And so
So maybe the word insert is, so can there be an extra piece of paper like SDG&E can put in their material? Can
I think
Cindy
Tara's
with
picked it
Power do like a
bill
one?
message versus a bill insert, which is the additional page.
correct. So we intend on putting together the bill message, essentially calling the fact that our rates will change or rates are changing effective 2/1. But as far as putting together a bill insert in the actual bill, the one thing that I definitely want to call attention to is we're not the billing agent. We do not control the bill mechanics. SDG&E does. And so if we are proposing to put a bill insert that historically hasn't existed on the bill section of CCA, there will be additional costs associated with that and possibly a time lag or time frame involved because, as you know, changing a billing system mechanic is definitely not only IT resource intensive, but definitely also costly.
One last question on that before we move on. Does SDG&E approve the message, or whatever San Diego Community Power wants has to be approved?
Yeah.
Lucas, I think you muted as you started talking.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, so SDG&E does not control the narrative as far as our bill messaging goes. We dictate that and we send it to them via the backend processes.
Okay, thank you for that information. Good question, Ed. Now, Secretary Webb.
Yes, I just had a quick question about the billing, because I know I'm on electronic billing with SDGE, so I get it in my email. They send me a weekly usage report. I just wanted to double check that we will have all of these features and functionalities with our customers going forward as well.
That's an excellent question, Secretary Webb. So yes, nothing changes in terms of your access to your My SDG&E portal, which allows for you to go in and see, your usage patterns and everything pertinent to it. So that stays the same. And so don't worry, as far as like, let's say, even for customers who are on auto pay, right? The fact that you're switching service from SDG&Es to us from a generation standpoint, everything on the back end should pretty much be seamless. In other words, your bills, your account will auto debit whenever it's set to auto debit to pay for your overall bill charges.
Thank you.
All right, Gary.
Yes, and I'm lowering my hand to start here. The thing I see on this that really interests me is the PCIA went down by about 25%. Is that part of a continuing trend? Or is that like an anomaly?
That's a very good observation. So yes, I think you're absolutely right. The PCIA did go down, effective SDG&E's rate change as of January 1st. With regards to, is this now the new normal going forward? I don't think it is, just based on what we've seen in the past. There were a few things that contributed to the PCIA going down in 2022, including the very high market prices for energy, which essentially then means the above market portfolio costs are lessened, right? If you have higher than the normal expected market prices. Now, based on projections and based on what we think we know today, these prices or the above normal market prices, it is expected that they will self-correct. And the expectation, at least, and the sentiment in the market space is that reset will probably happen the following year. And when that does happen, then we can expect for the usual norm or the usual trends for PCIA to take place in 2023 going forward. And so back to what I think Cody was mentioning when she started the presentation is what we're experiencing in 2022 probably seems to be an outlier. This is not the new normal. And as such, we are expecting what we call a snapback in the next year, meaning the rate competitiveness probably will not be nearly as much in 2023 going forward. So wondering if you had any additional questions on that. But yes, that is definitely an observation that seems to be a one-off for 2022.
Thank you.
Any other questions? CAC members of the public, not seeing any. All right.
Next slide, please. And so on this slide, we're talking about bifurcation of rates by vintage. What this means at a very high level is our customers have enrolled into our service at given points in time in 2021 and then certainly in 2022. And typically when SDG&E sets the PCIA, they look at they like to call it, the point in time when the load departed. So for this here, essentially what we're trying to capture is the fact that all of our phase 1 and 2 customers enrolled in 2021, phase 3 are enrolling in 2022, and SDG&E terms or looks at it as these customers having different vintages. Now, and different vintage customers are assessed different PCIA by SDG&E. Now, in order for us to be able to bring equality and equal treatment for all of our customers, such that everybody, regardless of what time SDG&E deemed to have departed their service and into our service, to realize that savings proposition of 2%, we're essentially going to propose to the board, and we've already previewed this for them in December, to set 2 sets of rates, looking at the 2 vintages that SDG&E is going to assign to our customers, meaning the 2020 vintage customers and 2021 vintage. And again, this is with a view and an alignment of our mission, which is to bring equal treatment for all of our customers, regardless of what point they join our service. I'll take a pause here, see if there are any questions that I can answer. And if not, I'll pass the baton back to Cody.
Next slide, please. So if you're wondering how to summarize all this, we tried to do it for you. Although we're open to feedback and we got some good ideas from you all. But here's the gist of it all. So, how do we compare to SDG&E or how do we compare this year? So the first thing is that our savings are maintained or increased, as Lucas talked about, from 1% to 2%. So that's really important, right? We recognize rates are going up across the board for everybody. So we're really happy that we're able to still offer the savings to our customers compared to if they stay or opt out and return to SDG&E service. We're also, of course, offering for that discount or that savings higher renewable content. So we're still at 50% renewable. We actually have an additional 5% greenhouse gas free. And SDG&E is at 31% renewable through higher quality product for what they're paying. We touched on this, but our Power 100 product is significantly lower than SDG&E's equivalent. It's called EcoChoice. In fact, so much so that they have found their program to no longer be viable and are requesting through the CPUC to just terminate that program because the cost is so high. We also, so that shows that we're the only game in town for customers to get a 100% renewable product, which is really exciting. Also, we're still able to move forward and invest in our community programs, and we're kicking off our community power plan and moving those items forward. And we're really excited about doing that work as well with the rates that we're setting. And then from a financial perspective, the rates that we proposed allow us in 2022 to contribute to our reserves and maintain our financial stability and kind of prepare ourselves for the following year to continue to be viable in this young age that we still are. And I already said that prepares us for 2023. And the small cushion that we're building this year allows us to weather any additional market costs or unexpected cost shifts. And then satisfies the credit obligations we have and the banking obligations. So our lender will be very happy with this decision as well, and that will give them confidence to continue making a line of credit available to us should we need it. So we think we threaded a needle that was a pretty tough needle to thread, and we're hoping that our board will adopt this, and we appreciate the feedback that we're getting from you as well.
Thank you, Cody. Thank you, Lucas. Any last questions, comments from the CAC or attendees? Carolyn, go for it.
Thanks. I just want to ask a clarification about the rate changes and comparisons being published. So does that mean that they're on the website, or are people actually going to get some kind of notification?
Lucas, go ahead.
Thank you, Cody. Thanks for that question. So yes, Caroline, we are actually in the process of working through the joint rate comparison with SDG&E. That is going to capture their rate change effective January 1st. Usually, per CPUC statute or mandate, we are required to post the joint rate comparison within 60 days of a rate change. And the way that we are going to make sure that all of our customers know of the JRCs or joint rate comparisons is we are going to put banners on our website. We will share through our social media platforms that those joint rate comparisons are completed such that customers can access them at will. And then obviously every single year as part of the CPUC or California Public Utilities Commission directive, we are required to send a joint rate mailer that essentially captures the comparison of all of our products relative to SDG&E, along with the percentages of the renewable energy content. And so customers should expect to see those come through. Usually the timeline is by July, but the fact that we know SDG&E is going to have a rate change in June, more than likely they will request for an extension, and customers should expect to get those joint rate mailers physically in their mailboxes no later than the 1st of September.
Okay, so just to make just to clarify, so when there is a rate change within a certain number of days, customers will get information about it and a comparison.
Correct. And,
Like
and that
in the
information will be
mailbox.
correct. They will be posted on both SDG&E's website and our website.
I mean, I'm also wondering about a system where people could say, get email updates or something, you know, where they could sign up for different programs or information that they would like to be kept informed about through the website. I know that's something that's, I mean, that's down the road. It's not right away, but I think that might be interesting too, because that's where I get information, because my bill is paid online and I get my bill online as well. So I get information just emailed to me. So that's my other thought about a way to get information to our customers. But thanks.
If I could just chime in, Carolyn, hi. Just to tag along with what you're saying, we are working on an email marketing system so that people can opt in to receive communications like that. So that's in motion right now. We're using a program called Granicus that other governmental agencies use. And so that should be online within a few weeks, and I'll keep you posted on that.
Thank you, Rita. Thanks for the question, Carolyn. Secretary Webb, I saw your hand was raised and now down. Did you have something else to add?
Actually, Rita, I'll email her or talk to her offline about this, but that was what I was going to say too, piggybacking on Carolyn, is that having like a newsletter people can sign up for. And that way we can even say, how's SDCP doing? Like, we're community-based. They are part of our network. You know, the users are part of our whole organization, and that would make them feel inclusive, and that we're transparent and maintain that messaging. And I think that would be a huge factor for people to start chatting to their neighbors, going, wow, this place is great.
I think you all are teeing up the next presentation by Rita quite well. So it's funny.
All right. Well, thank you again, Cody and Lucas. And we will move on to the PR portion of this.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So it sounds like Rita will take this one away.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. I'm Rita De La Fuente, Director of External Affairs, and I'm going to give you a brief update of where we are with our marketing and PR for the residential enrollment. I don't have a lot yet for our email marketing system, but I promise I'll keep you informed. It's something that we just started our training on. So Anna, I would love to connect with you for some ideas on that, but we're really, really excited to have that feature and get people engaged that way. So before I get started, I really want to just thank the Community Advisory Committee for all of your support and your willingness to help. Many of you have been crucial as I get more involved in this role, and to the whole team with your suggestions for events, just getting to know the communities that we serve. And I really appreciate the communications and relationships that we've been building. So with that, I'll get started. Next slide, please. So this is just, I think that you've probably seen this before. It's a calendar of our media rollout periods, but I wanted to share it with you all just as a reminder too of the sequence of event of the residential enrollments. So as you know, we're going to be starting soon in February with Imperial Beach, then La Mesa in March, Encinitas in April, and then San Diego and Chula Vista in May. So for paid media, we will start a week before the city's month, run through that month, and then continue on for 3 weeks. So each city will have 2 full months of paid media. But really, the outreach actually started in December with our direct mail. People began receiving notifications in the mail in December, and we've been trying to get out there more and more at community events. Also, we are scheduled to present to city councils in Imperial Beach, La Mesa, and Encinitas. Will soon be scheduled for Chula Vista and San Diego as well. So along with the paid media too, we're going to be releasing, well, we'll do press releases, and then if you all are willing and want to co-author an article to be released during that enrollment month, we'd love to have that. Next slide. So this is just a very brief snapshot of our public engagement events, of where we've been just most recently and upcoming events that we have. We have a calendar that stretches out for several months that we're constantly adding on to. So I have to thank you again for many of you just letting me know when things are coming up. Also, I've met with the events teams and communications teams for each of the cities. So they're keeping an eye out and feeding me with opportunities. And also our staff liaisons. So we meet with city staff liaisons on the regular, and they are extremely helpful as well. Next slide. So I just wanted to remind everybody of our creative concepts. I'm especially proud of this one on the left that we're calling My Reasons, because it features actual people in each of the cities. So this is, on the left is Kim Rivero Frink, who is the board president for Suncoast Market Co-op and IB. She's very well known and respected in Imperial Beach, and she's a great, she's just a great profile for this campaign, because when I approached Ms. Rivero Frink about the opportunity and to see if she was interested in being featured in this marketing campaign, she was really enthusiastic because she's all about sustainability and community choice. So there is just a natural parallel there. And so this is something that we'll be seeing in print and online. And then we're really excited to have somebody special represent each of the cities. In fact, we have our CAC representative from La Mesa, Jen Dirks, will be featured in the next campaign for La Mesa, who she's also perfect because not only is she a Power 100 champion, but she's also a resident. And so she can speak to both of those, and that's very relatable for people of La Mesa. So then on the right, we have the concept called Oh Yeah and Civilian has done a great job with this. They've even animated it. So you can actually see the bubbles and it looks like someone's actually in a conversation with their neighbor. So this is going to be a neat one to see on digital platforms. Next slide. So this really thrills me to give a shout out to Sebastian Saria on the call, because he developed and designed this concept. It's the Did You Know series. And I'm really excited about this because we started it yesterday. It's already had a lot of positive engagement, but Sebastian has the experience to know what people are actually wondering about. And so this will just be a series of factoids about what we do and little tidbits like what might happen in our rate change process, for example, as Lucas was referring to. So we have at least a dozen of these that we're going to be sprinkling throughout the residential campaign. Next slide. So just in time for residential enrollment, we just posted our bill explainer video in English and Spanish to our website. This actually the credit goes to our program manager, Nelson Manelli, for commissioning this video and managing the development of it. I encourage you to watch it. It's a very thorough walkthrough of what customers can expect on their bill, including all of the SDG&E charges. So I think it's going to be very helpful, and we'll be sharing this during each of the different city enrollments. Next slide. And I'm just going to end on this, another timeline here. This is kind of a snapshot of our communications and PR overview. So on February 1st, we have set to launch a big announcement of the residential enrollment. So that won't be city specific. It'll just be, it's time to enroll our families who are part of our service. And so once that drops on the 1st, Civilian will be conducting a regional and statewide media outreach. And then from February through May, we'll do our outreach for our city-specific enrollments. So for each city, there will be another press release just for that local media. The bylined articles that I mentioned, if you're interested, more community outreach events as more pop up, and also the partner toolkit, which I should see the finished product next week, which I'll be sharing with all of you and encourage you to share it too. This will be an email that contains social media posts, articles, an email you can send out to your contacts, and any sort of key points that would be helpful for you. And Civilian is helping us put that together. And then finally in June, when the enrollment is complete, we're planning a huge celebration, details to come on that, but we look forward to sharing the combined impact of all 5 cities, and that's when we can celebrate that everyone's been enrolled. Of course, until we come to the county and national city next year, but looking forward to that event and some more details to come there. And that is all that I have, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Rita. Any questions? Matthew, go ahead. Matthew, then Secretary Webb, then Gary.
Less a question, just more a comment. I really like this rollout strategy, and the did you know, I think is very important. And yes, Sebastian is going to come up with the best questions for this, engage so many community members who have these questions. I think this is brilliant. So I'm just excited, and just let us know how we can be helpful as you continue on with this process.
Thank you. Thanks, Matthew.
Secretary Webb.
I just wanted to thank Rita for all the work she's put in. So yeah, I'll reach out to you on the side again, because I think the newsletter is a great idea. I think this rollout and the planned events are extremely important. And of course, we'll be here to help any way we can.
Thank you for your support, Secretary Webb. And that just reminded me too that Chair Price and I met up with Secretary Webb and Tom Summers in Imperial Beach and explored the neighborhood. And it was really good to physically be there. And I hope to plan that soon with the rest of the cities. I was also introduced by our CAC members to Council Member Gonzalez Leyva, who has helped us tremendously as well, reaching out into his district. So thanks again.
Thanks. Gary?
Yeah, let's see. You were also planning to have people available to give presentations. Am I right about that? Did I was sending you an email while you were talking here. You may have mentioned it. Right?
Absolutely. Thank you. No. In addition to the community outreach events, if there are any groups that are interested in hearing from our staff, we have several people available to give presentations, and we are eager for that opportunity. It's just such a great way to get in front of people. You know, if you can't be face to face, if you can give a presentation on Teams or Zoom and answer people's questions, then it really helps tell our story. So thank you for that, Gary.
Mhm.
And we can also team up with one of you if you're interested in joint presenting, or we can even get one of our board members involved. There's lots of ways to do it.
Great. And I see Fabi from the attendees list has her hand raised. So Fabi, I'll start our 3-minute clock. Go for it.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, hi, everybody. It's Fabi Lau, Senior Equity Policy Manager with the Center for Sustainable Energy. Just wanted to say it's really great to see that phase 3 for residential customers is starting. I'm very excited. So Chula Vista resident, I am just can't wait for May to come. I just wanted to be May already. But I said just a question for that. Did you know Sirius, which by the way, I think it's wonderful. I actually did see it already on social media. Are those going to be rolled out also in Spanish and other languages like Tagalog? Is that like the an idea that's happening? And or actually, for that matter, any of the other social media materials and so forth? Because I know for like on the radio and newspapers, I know that that's like multi-language outlets has been considered, but I just wonder from the social media perspective. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Fabi. Nice to hear from you. It's funny you say that. Actually, I posted yesterday and then I went, oh shoot, I should have also done that in Spanish. So going forward, the graphic will stay the same in English, but the caption I want to offer in at least Spanish as well. And then for print advertisements, we're going to be reaching out to Filipino press. There's a Vietnamese and Chinese publication, and then a Latino and Voice and Viewpoint. So we're doing a bigger push than we have ever done before for multicultural outreach. So thank you for the question.
Thanks, Fabi. Always good feedback and appreciate you listening in. All right, any other questions or comments? Not seeing any. Thank you so much, Rita. We really appreciate
Thank you.
everything you and the team's doing. All right, getting towards the end here. Any committee member announcements?
Mr. Vice Chair, I failed to include a slide for the standing agenda item. Would be adding items to the board agenda, if you recall. So apologies for that.
Does anybody have does anyone have an item to bring forward to the board for their next meeting? From the CAC, any attendees? Not seeing any. Okay, thank you for flagging that, Sebastian. Moving back on to special meeting agenda. I saw David had his hand raised.
Oh, I just, I emailed Rita about the Community Advisory Committee applications for National City and the county. And it's my understanding there's not very many applicants yet. So I just wanted to encourage CAC members to think about who might be good to serve on this board, this committee, and encourage them to apply by the deadline, which I believe is a week away. The 19th, is it?
Can you repeat the name of the committee, please?
The Community Advisory Committee, our committee?
There's vacancies with National City and the county joining.
I see.
Yeah.
Sebastian, could we ask you or Rita to send another email to us with if you've done recent social media posts, and that, because sometimes I've shared things on LinkedIn before, someone I knew that was great for a role applied that I didn't know was interested or didn't think about. So if we have that, if anyone feels comfortable sharing it, we can just help spread the word.
Send that out. Thank you. I appreciate your help.
Thank you. David, anything else?
That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Can I mention one thing?
Oh, yes, of course.
Just a friendly reminder that for the eligibility to apply is that you can either be a resident of that member agency, or you can be part of a business that has a significant presence in those areas. So for example, if you live in the city of Chula Vista, but your business does work in the unincorporated areas, then you could be eligible to apply.
Gary, I'm going to turn to you quickly because my dog's barking at the mailman.
Thanks. I'm really excited about the community power plan, and we have 2 of our people on it. I'm hoping to see updates from them about, sort of like an ongoing reports, because if they have something to present, I would like it to be a not an all the time agenda item, but as appropriate agenda item. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, he's still barking, so I'm muted.
That
Don't
makes
worry
sense.
about it.
Yeah.
I support that. And just since I am the
Yes.
CAC rep on that interview process, the only update that I have is that we've conducted initial interviews, and I think there's a second round of interviews, and then they'll be selecting a consultant. So timeline wise, I think probably mid-February, but I'm not staff. I can't confirm that.
And I wanted to let you know that I worked on evaluating the proposals before they went to the interviews. And during that process, I actually looked at the RFP closely, and I studied some of the plans that are already written. One of them in particular for Clean Power Alliance in Los Angeles. And the link to their plan is posted in the RFP document. And it's really incredible to read their plan. Also, there are actually 2 of them listed there, and I'll send that information to Sebastian so that they can just send you the link to it. But I learned so much about all of the different types of ideas and plans and how the community power plan works. It's a kind of a risk benefit analysis for San Diego Community Power. And it's really amazing and awesome. And so SDCP will get a report from once the company is chosen, SDCP will get a report. It's almost similar when we got those feasibility studies in the beginning. And it's just really amazing. And so I'll send information to Sebastian that he can send to you. So thanks for asking. I originally was going to say something, and then I got, I don't know, bogged down in all the other stuff. So
Thank you for the updates, Carolyn and Matthew. And that's a good idea, Gary, to have recurring updates on that. I did want to announce San Diego 350 is doing an event next Sunday, the 23rd. Let me double check. Is it 23rd? Yes, at 2 p.m. about net metering. I know we've discussed it at our meetings here, but maybe Sebastian or Rita, when you send that email out, if you could include a link to that to let people know about what's happening, how you can weigh in, and they might touch on impacts to community choice energy programs, but I'm not 100% certain. And then some of you know, personally, I'm 7+ months pregnant, which might be why my immune system's down and I'm feeling like this, but I plan to continue coming to all our meetings, maybe do mid-March, so it's possible March I might not be here. Hopefully it doesn't come early and I am here next month, but if not, that might be why. But I'll keep Sebastian and Eddie updated. And I see Sebastian's hand raised.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Tara. How can I follow up with that? No, that's very exciting. I just wanted to piggyback on some of the NEM comments that you mentioned. I do know that our Director of Regulatory and Legislative Affairs sent out an email update to you all on the NEM related actions that we have taken. If there are any specific questions, please feel free to follow up to Laura and I in that email. But just a quick recap. East Bay Community Energy and SDCP submitted a joint comments on the proposed decision. And we were the commission dates for later this month on voting on that may move. So I'm sure Laura will update you all if that happens and if there's any other developments. But I just wanted to let you know that we are moving on that. We are acting on it to make sure that the grid access charge is not implemented. And we want to thank you all, and really got to give a big shout out to Tara and her team for being strong advocates in that process. So just a quick update on that. If there are any specific questions, we'll welcome any questions, feedback via the email.
So just to update for those who maybe missed the email or the email didn't dive in, a proposed decision came out from the CPUC December 13th. So right after our last meeting, a final decision is expected potentially as early as this month, but more likely next month or in March. And so there are opportunities where people can weigh in, but it's ultimately up to the CPUC. But, you know, Matt has spent over a year on this. Eddie has, San Diego 350 has. So it's been a group effort trying to advocate, and we are proud San Diego Community Power became the first DC in the state to weigh in and got San Jose on board. And I think that San Diego Community Power getting on board also helped get other cities. Chula Vista weighed in and Sonita, City of San Diego, as well as Solana Beach. But yeah, so thank you, Sebastian. Thanks, Laura. And yeah, just giving a little more background to that. And I'm happy to send a link to that event if anyone's interested. All right, anything else? I think that does it. Well, thank you all. Appreciate it. And exciting time. See you February 11th.
Thanks, everybody. Wish us
Thank
luck
you.
this month.
Thank
We've
Thank
got a
you.
rollout happening.
Yep.
I'll let you know
Okay.
how it goes. Yeah.
Exciting. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good weekend.
Bye-bye. Take care.